Good evening. I call to order the December 15th, 2021 business meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to please silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Mrs. Bates, for the final time, please lead us in the pledge.
That's right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates, present. Ms. Bolton, present. Mrs. Bowers, here. Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Mr. Messer,
Yes.
Mr. Morosky,
Here.
President Jones.
Here. Okay, I need a motion to modify the agenda, adding under board matters, the subject of Local 20 fact finding.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I don't think we have discussion, but I'll ask. Not yet, anyway. Treasurer Wagner.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Members of the public who wish to speak may do so by clicking the chat button now. The chat feature will be open for your request for 5 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, your topic, and contact information if you want a direct response to any questions you might have. Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the business meeting November 15th, 2021, revised. Special meeting November 22nd, 2021, and the business meeting November 22nd, 2021.
So move.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved as presented. Ms. Bowers, please present the December 3rd, 2021 Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee meeting report. And tonight, because it's your last day, I will not hold you to the 5 minutes.
Yes. And I was planning to take 3.
Okay.
Tell it all.
Thank you, President Jones. This is the report of the Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee. We were happy to have our science curriculum team with us, Ms. Allie Miller of Winton Hills Academy, Ms. Daphne Horsemeyer of College Hill Fundamental Academy, Ms. Sarah Boris of Fairview Clifton German Language School, Ms. Tammy Jackson from Roberts Academy, Ms. Denise Pfeiffer from Walnut Hills High School, Ms. Molly O'Donnell Good from Western Hills High School, Ms. Carolyn Burns, Withrow University High School, Mr. Eric Isaac of School of Creative Performing Arts, and Ms. Diana Schweitzer from Carson School. Ms. Elizabeth Wolf, a Physical Education Science and Health Curriculum Manager, and her team presented the science curricula adoption. And the objective was for our committee to take that feedback, was for our direction for them to take the feedback from the board and to further research to guide their work. And the final recommendation to the board to adopt this curriculum is proposed to be in February of 2022. I would like to thank Ms. Morales, Sarah Morales from the World Language Manager, and Dr. Travis Yeager of the World Languages Chair for presenting the World Language Curriculum adoption. We had Ms. Deborah Crawford, the Interim Digital Learning Manager, and she presented Learning Technologies update. We had an update from Ms. Emily Campbell that said she wanted an extension for providing our committee at a request of committee member Bolton for the Inventory of Arts program. We had Ms. Stacy Hill Simmons, Director of School Leadership, present an update on Evanston Academy. We had a little discussion as to why that enrollment was down, a pretty vibrant and intense discussion about that. She gave us some feedback. And one of the recommendations for me as a transitioning out board member is that Cincinnati Public School has so many wonderful things that's happening in our district. And I want this board and the community to continue to push and share some of the excellent things that we're doing more often than we have in the past. In other business, Mr. Lindy and I were to meet with Superintendent Amat about evaluation update. And we had that meeting, and Mr. Lindy is planning to present to the board in the near future some of the outcomes of that meeting. These are the minutes for the student achievement, the final minutes for me for student achievement, and I submit these as written.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Do board members have questions or comments? Okay. Yes, Mr. Lindy.
I just wanted to thank Member Bowers for her leadership of our committee this last year and say what a pleasure it's been working together.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I need a motion to accept the committee minutes as reported.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is that a roll call? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved as presented. Okay, so in our presentation, we're now down to the item for presentations, and as you all know, tonight is a special night. It's both a celebratory and a sad occasion, but we're in a celebrating mode. So I think this will be exciting, and both the board and administration want to congratulate and thank our outgoing board members. And so for right now, I am going to turn it over to Interim Superintendent Ahmad.
Thank you so much. We have 3 board members whose last board meeting is tonight. On behalf of the entire administration, I would like to take the time to recognize them. Ms. Bates, Ms. Bowers, and Mr. Messer. Will you please stand? Before we get to the gifts, I would like to say a few words. Board Member Bates has served on the CPS board for nearly 20 years, the longest standing current board member. In addition, she has served on the Ohio State Board of Education and is currently part of several statewide and national K-12 organizations, including the Council of Great City Schools Board. She has been willing to take on leadership roles for CPS throughout her tenure, including vice president 4 times and several committee chairmanship. K-12 education and making CPS a better place for our students and families has become a part of her DNA, and we will miss her wisdom and experience. Thank you, Ms. Bates. Board Member Bowers is a more recent member of the board, but she immediately became the voice and advocate for our students in their social, emotional well-being. She has contributed in many other ways, including chair of the Student Achievement Committee, who continues to lead critical work around curriculum and instruction. We know Ms. Bowers won't be going too far, and I know personally, I look forward to seeing her on campus, especially Gamble. Go Gators. Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Board Member Messer has a wealth of business knowledge and best practices around talent, customer service, and helping us ensure that we keep our stakeholders at the forefront of our minds. As a current parent, he has been in the unique position of not only helping to make critical decisions, but also understanding how those decisions impact our students and families. His energy and passion has been evident as he served for the last few years as our board's vice president. Thank you, Mr. Messer. To each of you, I want to thank you for all you have done to make CPS shine, and we have a few gifts for you. First, you can open this one here, the little shiny gift. We hope you love your Shine artwork, and it will be a reminder of all of the amazing support you have done to help CPS be a better place for students. The artwork was created by 2 amazing CPS artists, our students, Phoebe from Pleasant Ridge Montessori, and Anna, a sixth grader from SCPA.
Cool. That's great. Great.
We also have some flowers there for you, and we just thank you for your leadership and support to CPS and your countless hours and evenings to making us shine bright. So thank you for your service.
So the celebration is not over. Celebration is not over. So what we're gonna do is actually do our board recognition as part of our process for the resolution. So we are actually gonna introduce resolutions, and I am going to ask, there are 4 of us remaining on the board, and 3 members will meet our outgoing member out front, and we will present them with something. And we will also have a chance to talk with them and share our thoughts and offer our congratulations to them on moving on to their next phase. And we will ask you also, if you all wanted to share a few words, you can. Okay, Ms. Bolton, I'm going to ask you to present the resolution for board consideration for Ms. Bates. And if you would please come out in front. Can you do that? Yes, Ms. Bates. The board resolution, you don't have it? Here you is.
Oh, wow. Watch out. I'm going to sing a song. Come on, Mel. Got a president right here? Oh. A resolution recognizing board member Melanie Bates. Whereas in November 2001, Melanie Bates was elected to the Cincinnati Board of Education and re-elected 4 times, serving a total of 20 years from 2002 to 2021. And whereas Melanie's passion for education began at the elementary schools of her 3 children, all CPS graduates, where she regularly volunteered first in the classrooms, then moved up to the positions of school and district leadership. And whereas Mrs. Bates previously served on the Ohio State Board of Education from 1995 to 2001, which assisted her understanding of the issues impacting Cincinnati's children and families and enabled her to fulfill her responsibilities as a CPS board member. And whereas during Melanie's term, she served as vice president of the Board of Education in 2007, 2009, 2016, and 2017. And whereas during her 20-year tenure, Mrs. Bates has served as a member on every board committee. She chaired the Budget, Finance, and Growth Committee, the Health and Safety Committee, the Policy and Equity Committee, Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee, and served on the Partnership Public Engagement Committee as well. And whereas over the years, Melanie has been appointed to represent CPS on the following Ohio School Boards Association positions as a Board of Trustee member, Legislative Liaison, and a Southwest Region Executive Committee member. And whereas Mrs. Bates was recognized by her appointments to the Cincinnati Recreation Commission, Cincinnati Youth Collaborative, Council of Great City Schools, and the Mayerson Board of Trustees. Whereas the children of Cincinnati Public Schools are the recipients of Melanie Bates' institutional knowledge and history of the district, and her passion and dedication to quality education for all children, now therefore be it resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education expresses its deep appreciation to Melanie Bates for her invaluable contributions to the education of the children of Cincinnati. And be it finally resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education extends to Melanie best warm wishes for continued good health, happiness, and success in her future endeavors. Signed, Cincinnati Board of Education.
So, Ms. Bolton, you're presenting that as a motion to approve the resolution?
No,
As you-
actually, I don't want to, because then we have to,
I
and
know,
then she
I know, I know. That's the way it works. I order you to do that, yes, with much intrepidation. But anyway, here, I'll hold that while you guys walk back to your seat. And I also have something to present to Ms. Bates as the first one. But in the meantime, there's a motion on the floor to approve the resolution. I need a second.
Second.
Okay. It's been motioned and seconded. And Ms. Bates, I have for you, on behalf of the board, a copy of your resolution and your infamous nameplate. And a hug.
Yeah, right.
All right, so it's been motioned and seconded to accept the resolution. Any discussion? And I'd like first to ask Ms. Bates if you want to have a few comments.
Of course I will.
Of course.
Well, thank you so much for this recognition. And we've also benefited from the work of our other two departing board members, Pam, with her passion, her strong passion for children and their mental health, and Ryan for his business perspective that he brought to the board. So even after 20 years, my work is far from finished. I have the utmost confidence in the upcoming board. But to be on the safe side, I am passing the torch to my 4 board colleagues who will receive my final assignments tonight. Uh-oh. So Ben, you are extremely detail-minded. There he goes. I am handing off to you the responsibility of ensuring that Robert's Rules of Order are followed at all of our meetings. Also ensuring that the board is in compliance with the open meetings law and that all executive sessions are appropriately motioned. It's not an easy job and you will get stink eye a lot, but the board has to keep up its good rep for transparency. So you are inheriting from me the position of Sergeant at Arms. And Carolyn, we all know how important the role of a grandmother is. You and I had our practice kids, and now we rock it with the experience with our grandkids. And this has been reflected on our work on the board. So now you're going to be the only grandmother on the board. So it's up to you to provide that perspective of wisdom and empathy for all of our children, because that's what grandmas do. And you will also have to be the disciplinarian, just saying, in case the board acts up, but not that I expect they will, but you'll take care of that too. And Mike, I have saved the Suzuki program numerous times over the last 35 years. And now it's your turn. For some reason, unknowing administrators recommend cutting this great program from time to time without realizing how invaluable it is. Many of our students who otherwise may not have the opportunity or resources for a high quality arts program such as this, and they've been Suzuki trained in our schools, and they've become the foundation of our CPS school bands and orchestras, sharing their skills with the community. And these students have developed a love of music and the cultural arts for life, which is such a big part of being a Cincinnatian. And being a Suzuki kid yourself and a performing artist as an adult, I know you realize how important this program is to our children, so you are now the official Suzuki song.
Honored. It's not going anywhere, I promise.
And Eve, as of January, you will be the senior member of the board with a history that I'm willing to bet exceeds anyone else in the district. Starting with your elementary days at Sailor Park and high school days at Aiken. And this, with your experience as an educator, elected county official, and extensive service to CPS, you hold the institutional knowledge of this district and community. And it's up to you now to make sure that the same mistakes aren't made over and over again, and that the board and district's good work continues to grow unimpeded. It was hard enough with two of us trying to keep track of all this. So now you're really going to have to work hard on it. So these are big assignments, but I know you're all up to it. I will be turning in my board badge or a volunteer badge. So I know I won't be far away and always serving our children. So thank you for supporting me in this opportunity of a lifetime to be a member of the Cincinnati Board of Education.
Thank you. Thank you. I would. I would like to open up for board comment if people want to have comments for Ms. Bates. Just remind you that we're on time. We want to give you as much time and have people recognize you. And Ms. Morosky, we'll start with you.
Especially since I have to leave early, I just get to do all the good stuff tonight, I guess. I just wanted to tell you, Miss Bates, or Mel, if I may call you that, for this portion. It is, I don't think it's any real big secret to anybody that I benefit from having guardrails, and you provide really excellent guardrails and have for me in the 4 years we've worked together, beginning on policy with Eve, my very first year. I learned a lot, and hopefully you've been able to see that as I've chaired policy the past 2 years. I'm definitely a different board member, I think, chairing it the past 2 years because of working with you that first year. And also, no secret, we haven't always agreed on everything. But one thing I always say behind your back, and I feel the need to say it to your face because I think that's important, is that regardless of how much we have disagreed on different things or really agreed on other things, we've always spoken to one another cordially and never, with vitriol. So I just let you know, if it's not obvious, I respect the hell out of you. And, your diligence to the rules, I think, is really important. And you remind me a lot of what George Orwell said, that if you keep the small rules, you can break the big ones. And you always, make sure we're keeping the small rules so that we can do big transformative stuff. And I think that's really important. So, Ben, it's your turn now. I think you picked the perfect person, by the way, to pay attention to it. So thanks, Mel. I appreciate you.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Lindy?
I promise I'll be brief. I just wanted to say how beautiful I thought your remarks were and how uniquely thoughtful they were. And to say thank you, and I will miss sitting next to you and having you here, and I wish you the best in what's next.
Ms. Bolton, do you have comments?
Yes, and I want to point to a couple things. Melanie supported equity before any of us knew how to spell it. And I can remember more than 15 years ago when that was part of the issue as we were in the process of finding ways to help CPS progress and not just worrying about certain kids or certain schools. Melanie championed, even as we did a facilities master plan. She sponsored and really advocated for a policy, a board policy, that as we moved kids around, we could never force a child or a family to a less successful, less achieving school within CPS. And that became part of the parameters. She turned a personal event into a commitment to safety for everybody. And in the olden days, was one of those folks that said, if I can say it, there needs to be music and art and athletics and extracurriculars in every school when we did not have them. There had to be a counselor in every high school when we did not have them. I I feel very strongly that she's been a major force also in keeping our district fiscally sound, because she is the person that has been willing to be on finance more years than anybody else can even remember anybody being on finance. And I appreciate that, because it will be for naught, whatever else we do, if we are not fiscally sound and putting our money where our priorities are. Melanie and I have known each other for at least 3 decades. My mother was one of her best volunteers when she would run for office. So we go back. But I salute you and miss you. I'm now going to be just the oldest person on the board. And I was even with you here, which you would remind me at least weekly that I was the oldest. Now I am most senior, and I will pick up that burden and try to do as well as you've done all these years. Love you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, and I will offer just a few brief comments. I think I really appreciate the personal sort of acknowledgement and sort of my assignment. And one thing I could always count on you, Melanie, is the truth. And you and I have had a few bumps in the road, but the one thing, and I agree with Mike, is that it never interfered with our working relationship. And we've been very honest with each other about things. And you've held me to the fire about Robert's Rule of Order, although I don't think I'm all that bad with it. But I've learned a lot from you. And we don't often get to say that to people, that I'm never too old to learn. And I think you've given me a lot of wisdom and recommendations and ideas, and I always take you seriously. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have worked with you, and we'll see you. I mean, doesn't mean we're parting forever. So I'm sure that our paths will cross again. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Roll call. Mrs. Bates, do I have to vote on this?
Aye.
Good question. Parliamentary person?
She can abstain if she wants to.
You can vote on it, I think. Yes.
Bolton,
I regrettably,
Mrs. Bowers,
Yes.
Mr. Lindy,
Yes.
Mr. Messer, Mr. Morosky,
Yes.
President Jones.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Okay, moving on, Mr. Borowski, please present the following resolution. Yes, you go up in front.
Ms. Bowers. That's you.
Here you go, Mr. Borowski.
Wow, all the way from the west side. I have a resolution recognizing my friend and board member Pamela Bowers. Whereas on March 27, 2019, Pamela Bowers was appointed to the Board of Education to fill the seat vacated by former board member Erica Copeland Dansby. Whereas Ms. Bowers is a parent of 2 CPS graduates, which, together with more than 25 years working in the mental health field, providing support and guidance to children while empowering families and parents, enabled her to fulfill her responsibilities of a board member. And whereas Pamela's commitment to academic achievement led her to serve in 2020 and 2021 as the chair for the Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee, whose major tasks were to review issues and proposals relating to program study, curriculum and instruction, and human resource issues. And whereas Mrs. Bowers also served on the Health and Safety Committee in 2021, the Policy and Equity Committee in 2019 and 2020, and the Strategic Engagement and Planning Committee in 2019. And whereas Pamela's skills were recognized by her appointments to the Activities Beyond the Classroom and Student Achievement Liaison and Ohio High School Athletic Association School Board Liaison for the Ohio School. There are too many words in these things. The Ohio School Board, we have to shorten the Ohio School Boards Association. And whereas the children of the Cincinnati Public Schools are the recipients of Pamela Bowers' passion for children, commitment to community service, and dedication to quality education for all children.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education expresses its deep appreciation to Pamela Bowers for her invaluable contributions to the education of the children of Cincinnati, and be it finally resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education extends to Pamela Bowers warm wishes for continued good health, happiness, and success in her future endeavors.
Ms. Morosky put a motion on the table, and I need a second. Okay, and any discussion? We'd like to give Ms. Bowers the opportunity after I present her with her plaque. On behalf of the board, Ms. Bowers. Ms. Bowers, you have comments?
Yeah, and I'm not going to be long-winded, but as read in the strategic plan, my connection with the board began before I became a member. As board member Morosky explained, in early 2018, I was a part of the strategic engagement committee. 2018 and 19, I was a thorn in the side of the board as an advocate for Galen Montessori moving to its current location in a spirit of equity and excellence in education. 2019, a member of the Launch Strategic Plan, advocating and was victorious in our district being made whole via the tax abatement saga. In 2020, Kurt just staying the course through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, advocating for the health and safety of our students, teachers, and working diligently with Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center and Cincinnati Health Department to do that. I am in awe through this experience, working with families, teachers, staff, administration, and community partners who continue to be committed to the success of our students. I would like to thank my fellow board members. As elected officials, we volunteer our time, our talent, and at times our tears to making decisions that make sense for our students. I urge the remaining board members, inclusive of the newly elected board members, to continue to make student-centered decisions, as well as we transition into this next phase of our history. In closing, as a parent, as a community member, and soon to be officially a former board member, I want to reiterate that I am CPS. Thank you.
Board member comments? Go ahead, Bolton.
I first met Ms. Bowers when she was 110% advocating for the Mercy building to become our second Montessori program in high school. And she did not miss one meeting. So her devotion is not only because of her two kids and that she cares about all children, but she actually really cared as well about the district. You know, big city school districts don't emphasize the district the way that I think suburban districts and rural districts kind of see it. But she was thinking ahead about the district. And more particularly, not only is it that she thinks about the district, but she was also figuring out, as Melanie had pointed out some years before, that our Montessori program was one of our star pieces, if you will, of the district, and more particularly that the West Side deserved that kind of representation and that kind of offering service. So very often, over many, many years in this district, the West Side gets underrepresented. You have done an incredible job representing, forgive me everyone, but originally I'm from Sailor Park, the best side. Thank you so much for having two great kids and your fantasy husband. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comment? Go ahead, Ms. Morosky.
So I knew Pam Bowers, right, before you got on this board, and I always fancied myself pretty fierce fighter for student social emotional health until you got on this board and realized that there was definitely somebody who is more laser focused and had exceedingly more expertise than anyone. No offense, to the company, but that is going to be a sorely missed voice. I know that your focus on SEL and MH issues resonate with all of us, so I'm not worried about the voice being here. I do when I think about what we're losing with you three. There are certainly, and they've been repeated tonight, by everybody, but there are three very distinct skill sets that we're losing. But I do feel good that we'll be able to carry it forward. But I just want you to know how awesome it's been to have you here, to just be unwavering in your support of our kids' whole child mentality. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lindy.
Ms. Bowers, I just appreciate so many things about working together with you. One of them was, this may seem like a small thing, but just to work with another board member who had a full-time job that they were trying to juggle alongside being a board member. And one thing I really appreciate, you were always willing to make time for me. Always. I truly, truly appreciate that. I would just echo, I think, some of what Eve and Mike said about always asking the question about how this impacts student mental health, or where thinking about student mental health was in a decision or a set of issues. And to ask that question with actual real experience and knowledge, it was so valuable, and I feel like I learned so much. And I will genuinely miss getting to work with you, but I hope that we will have other reasons to continue to see each other. So thank you.
Ms. Bowers, I think I've probably known you longer than anybody here. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, my background and your background, we both are mental health professionals. And I think I've known you. How old is your daughter? 20? Okay, so maybe the best part of her life. So it's been that long, 19, 20 years. And it's really strange because I used to see Pam all the time. She would come down to the mental health board where I worked. Of course, that's where meetings occurred. All the meetings in the world occurred, right? And I always thought about her as this quiet person. I was like, she's quiet, very sweet, very nice, professional, all that, very quiet. Girl, you ain't quiet. You're not quiet. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I have really, really appreciated how you take a strong position for our kids. You are very student-centered, and it's evident in everything you do and how you think about it and your actions behind it. And when Superintendent Ahmad said, you think about that in terms of what it means to be student-centered and the social, emotional aspects of it. I mean, every other word, every other thought, that's what you're thinking about. That's the context that you put it in. And I really appreciate that in you. And again, I kind of anticipate that you'll stay close and stay involved and push us along as we need it. I remember the days when she was advocating for Gamble. She didn't come out and like yell at us, but she made her point, right? And so we all knew that you have a way about yourself, and I appreciate that, the professionalism that you exhibit. And then finally, in closing, we always have sort of, and I'm not going to share this with people because it's a private thing, you and I, about when we were on the campaign trail, that little incident that happened that Odie got ticked off about. Okay. I'll always remember that, and we can always laugh about that particular incident. Those of you who know her husband know how quiet and demure he is, and I saw him catch on fire one night. So, in Pam's defense. So, thank you for being a great board member and great colleague. And again, you won't be far. We won't be far from each other. Thank you. Okay. And certainly last, but certainly not least, is our friend, Mr. Messer.
It is my real honor to present a resolution recognizing board member Ryan Messer. Whereas in November 2017, Ryan Messer was elected to the Board of Education, serving a total of 4 years from 2018 to 2021. And whereas Mr. Messer is a parent of 4 children, current and future CPS students, which together with his background as a community leader and volunteer enabled him to fulfill his responsibilities of a board member. And whereas during Ryan's term, he served as vice president of the Board of Education in 2019, 2020, and 2021. And whereas in 2018 and 19, Mr. Messer served on the Finance Committee, chairing the committee in 2018, whose responsibilities included all budget matters, capital and federal program expenditures and income, financial progressions, treasurer's evaluation, legislative goals, and annual audit review. And whereas Ryan also served on the Health and Safety Committee in 2021, the Policy and Equity Committee in 2020, the Strategic Engagement and Planning Committee in 2018 and 19, and the Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee in 2020. And whereas Mr. Messer's skills were recognized by his appointments to activities beyond the classroom and the Business Advisory Council. And whereas the children of the Cincinnati Public Schools are the recipients of Ryan Messer's passion for children, commitment to community service, and dedication to quality education for all children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cincinnati Board of Education expresses its deep appreciation to Ryan Messer for his invaluable contributions to the education of the children of Cincinnati. And be it finally resolved, the Cincinnati Board of Education extends to Ryan warm wishes for continued good health, happiness, and success in his future endeavors. I get to say something, right?
Right now?
What
Okay.
isn't that what he did?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say to Ryan in particular, I wanted to thank you for welcoming me to the school board. One of the very first things that happened after I was elected is you invited me over to your house, which I really appreciated. We sat in your beautiful house and talked about the school board. You have a very busy and demanding job, and you always took calls from me, which I genuinely deeply appreciate. And I wanted to say, on a professional level, how much I appreciate the high bar you have for how we as a board and as an organization operate. I appreciate that a great deal. And on a personal level, I'm just completely blown away by your Renaissance manness and how many activities and interests and places you manage to be and see. And it's something that I would love to aspire to in my own life. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay. As they're coming back around, we'll open it up for discussion after I present Mr. Messer his plaque. On behalf of the board, I present to you a plaque of the resolution and a replica of the nameplate. Comments? Mr. Messer.
Well, I guess I have to start with, it has been my true great pleasure to serve with this board and serve the families and children of Cincinnati Public Schools, and hopefully serve the people that work here, that make the magic happen. A special thank you to Jimmy and my children. I like everybody, we're away from home and that type of thing, and the burden goes to other people, and Jimmy has always been that steady supporter. I think my company, because some of you know, we in the past month got a new president, a new VP. So the past month has been on the road in New Jersey and New York, but outside of that, my company's let me miss national meetings. They've changed dates. They've paid for flight changes so that I could serve. And I think I just could be more proud to work for Johnson & Johnson to have supported me like this. And I thank the people who put me here. One thing, as a gay male and a gay parent, there's not a whole lot of cities that I could have run and served my authentic self, to get elected, let alone to be supported the way that I have been. So thank you to the people who've allowed me to be me. I think this board, because, you know, who would have thought some of these big decisions would have come our way? There have been a lot. And, you know, to the point where, you know, the workload and the impact is greater than lots of other elected officials, elected roles throughout city, county, et cetera. And I think it's only been over these past 4 years that I think a lot of people woken up like, this is important stuff and big stuff that impacts the city. I thank Carolyn for her leadership. She has just been a great friend, somebody I know I'll be with forever. But I say this to people, and I've said it to her, she's one of the best leaders. And she could run a corporation just as well as she's doing what she does here. She's just so even, just so thoughtful. And so I thank her for her leadership and especially her impeccable instincts. I think interim superintendent Amat, I was heartbroken to lose Laura Mitchell, as a parent, as a board member, and everything else for this district. And I have been absolutely in awe of what you have done to keep the light shining bright here at CPS. When I've been there, even in my company without a president, things went a little sideways. I have not seen that here, and it's a testament to you. I think Jen for spending lots of time to get me up to speed on what I think is one of the most important aspects of the school board job is understanding the financial picture and understanding how tax dollars and federal dollars and state dollars all come together. And you can't miss on any of those to be able to do what we do here. So thank you, Jen. I think the new coming members, Kareem, Mary, and Brandon, Kareem and Mary I've known for a long time, and I am happy to have met Brandon. Thank you for what you're going to do for this district. I think all the people that make this district what it is, the district where my children and children across this district will be prepared for life. There is nowhere I would trust more than CPS to get my kids ready. And specifically, Ms. Duffy, Ms. Dessa, Ms. Rush, and Ms. Davenport. We have interactions with 4 teachers. They're the best that I could have ever hoped for. And it's not an accident. This is the level of excellence we have here at CPS. And of course, our principal, Jack Corey, just is such an inspiration of what great looks like. And again, a representation of just what we do here at CPS. It's probably no secret that Bubby, as my kids call her, Melanie, and I have not just served on the board, but our families have kind of joined together. So I know when a couple people have left the board in the past, they said, oh, well, you're going to see me showing up. You will not see me in here. Maybe if there's a topic or something. But we have committed that we are still going to keep the meetings on our calendars, and we're going to come up with drinking games as we pay attention, because if you have stakeholders, if you are stakeholders, grandparents, parents, you should be listening into these meetings. There's important stuff. So we will be listening and participating, but having a little fun, because to this board, what you do matters. What you do is so crucial for us to break through so many areas where we have to make up for lost time, for children who've been left behind, for families who've been left behind, people who have been left behind. This is the great, most important opportunity we have to bring equity and inclusion to the world. And I can't think of anywhere better that's an example of who's doing this well than Cincinnati Public Schools. So I thank every person around this table and throughout the entire CPS community for not just making our children better, but really making our community better and making our world better. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, board comment. Wants to go first? Ms. Bolton, you go ahead. You want to go?
Okay.
Okay.
I first met Ryan, I believe, at the Coffee Emporium, and Olivier was still being carried around in a cart, so to speak. And Ryan was absolutely adamant about how we were going to use the Vine Street School, and totally adamant, and I mean adamant. And I think Olivier was too. I think he was talking at that point. Not really, but he was very emphatic himself about preschool. And I think that Ryan has been a steadfast believer in preschool, the partnership, as well as what CPS does. And I've also appreciated greatly, not just the friendship and the how shall I say it, the warmth of your family and your openness about your wonderful home and sharing what you're all about and welcoming so many people into your life. Really appreciate that. That's the best of all of us, I think. But I'm also going to say I've appreciated, obviously, the business acumen, certainly. I'm not going to miss hearing too much more about J&J, though. I feel like I am an authority on J&J, and I've learned it here at the board meetings. But what I will miss is your persistence for excellence and finding a way to market this district in a wholesome and creative way. And you are the narrative, and you have been the cheerleader for this district while you've been on the board. So thank you for us, because you did such a great job at all of those things. Miss you, but I do expect to see you quite often. Congratulations.
Thank you. Ms. Morosky?
Yeah, so my mom used to party with Ryan before I knew Ryan. Actually, this is eons ago, before you lived over the Rhine, well before Jill. And she used to talk about this guy named Ryan that she hung out with, her buddy Ryan, who would take her on dates. And I've always thought how cool that was when my parents moved here. Actually, I think maybe my mom was the first person you introduced Jimmy to. Is that right? So we go back, and then we met, and then we have had all kinds of relationships, Ryan, I think, from streetcar on the same side of issues, the different side of issues. And similar to Mel, what I tell folks all the time is no matter what side of the issue it falls on, you're never going to get me to say something cross about Ryan Messer in some way. And you referenced this about the decisions we've had the opportunity to make. It's like a war buddies kind of thing. I've never been in war. I don't know what that feels like, but that's kind of how I feel actually about all y'all, to be honest, especially after the past 4 years, 2 years. And so, love you. This has been a really cool. It's been trying. It's been tough on all of us. And I'm going to miss you. And, without you, I think everyone would agree with me. We would not have had a strategic plan. And we wouldn't have something to build off now. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe Mr. Lindy, unless you have additional comments. Okay, I'll close this part out. I don't know if I could call it an interaction, but I can remember sitting in the audience. I was one of the public. This is before I made the decision. I think I was in the process of trying to decide whether to run. And I saw you and Jimmy come in with this baby, and you spoke. And it was about the Vine Street piece. And I can remember in my head, I said, wow, he's advocating strongly. Articulate, thoughtful, had all your data together. You knew what you were talking about. And so the irony of it is here, a few years later, you end up running for the board. And I can remember we had lunch or breakfast or somewhere, because I thought you were related to the wealthy Messers, but whatever. But I can remember the situation when you were first coming on the board and you wanted to run for one of the elected offices. And there was a little bit of disagreement. And the one thing I appreciated and I will never forget is at our first work session, at the end of that very tenuous session, you walked up to me and you gave me the biggest hug. And we agreed at that time that we would never let anything like that interfere with our relationship. You have been the best friend and supporter for me and an ear. You operate with a high integrity. I think Mr. Lindsay spoke to that. You're very idealistic. You always think of what's up here. It's not enough just to be mediocre. It's what's up here. And I appreciate sharing with you. I wish you well. I know you're gonna soar in whatever you do, and I know we'll stay in contact. I know that. Okay. Thank you. Wow. I know that took a lot of time, but we felt that it was important. We want to make sure that you all go out, and we're very proud of working with you, and we know you're going to continue to be friends and supporters of the district, so we thank you very much. Now, yes, we got to vote. Did we vote on this one?
No, we need, Ms.
Two,
Bowers
we need to
and-
vote on, I am sorry, talk about not following the rule of order, but we need to, it's been motioned and seconded that we accept the resolution for Ms. Bowers. So we need to vote on that one. Roll call.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Messer? Yes. Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. It's also been motioned, that motion carries. It's also been motioned and seconded to approve the resolution for Mr. Messer.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we're in a little bit of a conundrum. I'm going to ask the board's indulgence. Tell me if I'm out of order for the parliamentary piece of this. But we have a very important board matters item that I'd like to present while we still have all board members here. We have one board member that has to leave. So Superintendent, if we could defer for a little bit until we get past that. Mr. Hoying's going to come down, and this is the board matters item that we added on the local 20 fact finding piece.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The district held a mediation fact-finding with Local 20 of the International Union of Operating Engineers, representing a bargaining unit of carpenters, on November 29th, 2021. Parties have reached tentative agreements on all issues except for one, whether additional vacation days for the carpenters on their 10th and 15th anniversary dates should be allocated on a lump sum or accrual basis. Local 20 argued those days should be allocated on a lump sum basis, consistent with an arbitration award from earlier this year. CPS argued that those vacation days should be allocated on an accrual basis, consistent with the way CPS allocates vacation to other bargaining units and employees. The fact finder took the matter under advisement and issued a report this week recommending Local 20's proposed language for a lump sum allocation. Within 7 days, the board must vote on whether to approve or reject the fact finder's report. Rejecting the report requires a 3/5 majority, that's 5 board members, to vote to reject the report. Otherwise, the report is deemed approved. I'm glad to answer your questions and then ask for a vote on this fact finder's report, which has been provided.
Okay. Ms. Bowers first, and then did I see a hand? Mr. Morosky and Mr. Lindy.
Yes, thank you, President Jones. So just for clarity, Mr. Hoying, this is not about a financial specific pro or con. This really is about when vacation days can be allotted based on 10-year, 15-year points.
It's about how the vacation days are allocated, but I would defer to the treasurer on that point.
There's some secondary financial implications. So if you allocate the lump sum out vacation and they were to resign 2 weeks later, then they would get that as a payout. Instead of, in the other way of accruing it, they would only accrue it as they went, and that wouldn't be as big a financial burden. But there's also a deterrence away from standardizing the way we process our employees. This would have to be a manual adjustment, and those 94 people have 88 different distinct anniversary dates, so it'd be very difficult to stay on top of manually.
So you said 94?
Well, there's two unions.
This bargaining unit is 11 members of the carpenters. The language is similar, and we expect the building engineers may make a similar argument if this is accepted.
Right, so for those 10 members, it's 10 or 11, they've all been hired on different dates. So their anniversary dates would be very unique.
Okay, Ms. Morosky?
I was essentially the same question.
Okay, Mr. Lindy?
Thanks, President Jones. I was just trying to follow up on the vote itself. Are you recommending that we accept, or are you recommending that we reject?
Consistent with the treasurer's recommendation, I think we'd recommend rejecting the report.
And can you say just a little bit more about the rationale?
Yeah, again, in terms of it is not a financial windfall either way, but it is consistent with how vacation is accrued to all CPS employees. It's how we've accrued vacation, across bargaining units. And I think the concern is that doing things differently for these 11 members is contra to the treasurer's, I think, the efforts to make things consistent, make things automated, that reduces mistakes, et cetera. Is that fair?
And just to add to that, last bargaining session, we eliminated the longevity additions to people's salary on their anniversary date for that very reason. There was a lot of errors. There was findings for recovery against the treasurer. And it's just very, very difficult to have a manual process when you're trying to process 6,000 paychecks every pay period.
And I think that makes sense. I just want to following too that we have many different bargaining. We have thousands of employees who are parts of those bargaining units. So for what we do for all of our CFT members, for all of our ASP members, for all of our building trades members, the 10 or 11 here are asking for something different from what we do in all those other cases. And what we're saying is we're very committed to vacation. We just want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is fair and consistent across all the different bargaining groups that we work with.
That's right. I will say teachers don't have annual leave in the same way that our year-round employees do, but this is the same as our ASHME employees, our trades employees, and others who accrue vacation.
Thank you.
Okay, and just for clarification, because Mr. Lindy actually asked the question I was going to ask in terms of what the recommendation was, but the fact-finding piece of it ruled against us. But the recommendation that's coming forward is that we reject the recommendation from the process. That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. Now, in terms of procedurally, I want to make sure that I have this right, because this is not coming to us in a resolution form, but we do have to enter a motion and have it approved with a roll call vote. And on this particular vote, we need a supermajority.
The board needs, if the report is to be rejected, and the treasurer will do a roll call vote, but you'll be voting either to approve the report or reject the report. So it's approve or reject.
Okay.
If a supermajority does not reject the report, it's deemed approved. Okay. So it requires 5 votes to reject.
Okay. So, Ms. Bolden, do you have
Just a point of clarification, both general counsel and our district treasurer are recommending rejection.
That's my understanding. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to make sure I get the presentation about this. So do we need a motion to approve or reject, or we just need a roll call?
Just a roll call.
And then each person will either approve or reject.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Hold on. Before we do that, parliamentarian right here, outgoing, reminds us that we probably need to do a 48-hour waiver on this one. So we first need a 48-hour waiver to add this action item on the table.
I move for a 48-hour waiver.
Second.
Second. Okay. Treasurer Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Mr. Messer?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yeah.
No, is the yes?
You're approving the 48-hour waiver.
48
Oh,
hour
sorry.
waiver.
Why would say yes?
Just the
Yes.
sweater.
Sorry.
Just the sweater.
So is that a yes?
I think he said yes.
Okay, President Jones.
Yes. Okay. So now we need to do a vote and roll call. The recommendation is, the question is, do we want to reject or approve? And
Accept or reject?
accept or reject.
Roll call. Mrs. Bates? Reject. Ms. Bolton?
Reject.
Mrs. Bowers?
Reject.
Mr. Lindy?
Reject.
Mr. Messer? Mr. Morosky?
Reject.
President Jones?
Reject. Overwhelming, that is a supermajority. That's a unanimous vote for rejection. Thank you. And you keep us informed of what, okay. All right. So we got that result. Now we're going to go back to our presentation. Superintendent Ahmad.
Yes, tonight we will have two presentations. The first being our school safety update. And our presenters are Ms. Shauna Murphy, Assistant Superintendent, Daniel Hoying, Legal Counsel, and Mr. William Bell, Director of Safety and Security.
Thank you, Superintendent Ahmad. Good day, everyone. Season's greetings. So this presentation was originally shared in Health and Safety, and as General Counsel Hoying and Mr. Bell joined me, Assistant Superintendent Bunty also played a huge role in this work, but she is absent on today. Next slide, please. In alignment with our strategic plan, this work is coming from specifically health and safety. We want to ensure the health and the safety of all of our staff and students who are in our school buildings each and every day. Next slide, please. So health and safety charged us with several areas to look at in response to our relationship with our school resource officers in particular. And so on the next slide, you'll see some of those charges. One, we were asked to review our MOU with the Cincinnati Police Department. We were asked to take a look at specifically restorative practices, the redesign of the Promise Center, formerly ADA-S-ADE. We were asked to implement alternative learning centers in all of our schools. And then the fifth request was to share data with the Health and Safety Committee regarding National School Resource Officer best practices. So on the next slide, you'll see the timeline of that work. It actually began May 2020 when we were in the beginnings of the pandemic, when we were away from our students and our city and our country. We were in the midst of civil unrest, and we were very concerned with what was going on with our students. How are they feeling? What are they thinking? What do they need? And so we reached out to them, pulled together a group of high school representatives from across our district, and launched Speak Out, Speak Up, Speak Out. In December, Cohere, a partner of ours, we met with them, and they had a conversation with a group of our parents. And then, of course, you know that the anti-racism policy had been established. Continuing on the timeline, we went back to Cohere and said, hey, we want to hear from a different group of students, and they did that engagement. They talked to the majority of our high school principals. In June of 2021, Mr. Hoying contacted the ACLU to continue that conversation. Our Health and Safety Committee members visited the Cincinnati Police Department's cadet program down at Hayes. July 2021, on the next slide, we revisited the MOU. We hired our Safety Services Director, Mr. Bell. September 2021, again, Cohere provided community insight. We had focus groups creating data points that we would be able to frequently measure and monitor. And then we had a meeting in September to level set expectations with principals and our school resource officers. In October 2021, we reported out to the Health and Safety Committee. Now, I do want to speak briefly, the next slide, please, about Cohere. Board members, you will see a packet at your tables. It is a pretty comprehensive packet from Cohere. I won't go into those details, but I will tell you that overwhelmingly from the community members, our students that we talked with, all of our principals we talked with, our parents are our caregivers. While they did talk about some concerns, some issues, some wonderments about our relationship with CPD, they did express interest more in not releasing school resource officers from our buildings because they generally found those to be solid, strong relationships, but they did want to strengthen those relationships. So we did talk to those caregivers, we talked to students, we talked to school principals, we talked to community members, and then they came away with 3 basic recommendations. 1, to increase engagement efforts to improve trust levels between our students, our community, our parents, and our SROs, to be transparent about their roles, their responsibilities, why they exist, and what qualifies them to be school resource officers. And finally, a request for them to practice more empathy and understanding when interacting with our students. At this time, General Counsel Hoying will come and talk to you about our MOU and ACLU data.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Many of you remember or will recall in April of 2021 when the Ohio ACLU published a case study of the alarming new data about over-policing within Cincinnati Public Schools. The Inquirer wrote about this study, and I think other media outlets as well. A group of us met with the ACLU in June of 2021 and requested further explanation of some of the statistics that were cited in their report. In our review, we found that some of the statistics cited by ACLU were true, but not relevant to SROs in schools. Others were highly exaggerated and some outright false. First, much of the data reported by ACLU related to discipline disparities, so school discipline, expulsions, suspensions, etc. And the disparities that exist between the rates of student discipline for white students and students of color. That is an issue within Cincinnati Public Schools. It's an issue in many public school districts. We have a team of SEL professionals working to improve that. But to be very clear, that discipline data is not at all related to school resource officers. School resource officers within CPS have no role in student discipline. They are not involved in recommending or even assisting in any way with a school suspension or expulsion process. So while, again, we can do better on student discipline disparity between white and black students, that's not related to the role of our school resource officers in our schools. Second, again, ACLU had statistics within their report related to student arrest records. They cited that there were 273 student arrests and kept insisting to us that they were relying on CPS reported data. When we went through this data with them from they were looking at the U.S. Department of Education Civil Rights Data Collection Study that's published and available online. The most recent publication of data from that study is from 2017. And we showed them that they were reporting inaccurate data. To ACLU's credit, they have since corrected on their website the number of arrests reported. They originally reported that there were 273 arrests of CPS students in 2017. That's been corrected. There were, in fact, 81. That's still a high number of students arrested, but it's less than a third of the number reported by ACLU. I don't think the Inquirer rewrote a story following that updated data. Finally, the ACLU has statistics within this report related to the number of interactions between SROs and students. We believe they've received that data from Cincinnati Police, and I can't speak necessarily for the police data, but I do think it's important to point out that our SROs serve Cincinnati Public Schools and also serve our parochial, non-public, charter schools. Each SRO is assigned, again, a CPS high school and then other schools within our district, private and parochial. They also are highly involved outside of the school day off of school property. They're involved at football games. They're involved in basketball games. They're involved in incidents involving students that may or may not have anything to do with the school day, etc. So again, citing that there are thousands of interactions per year between SROs and students is not necessarily surprising, but to be clear, those all don't happen on CPS schools or within CPS schools. Next slide. One of the most disappointing things about the ACLU study was their assertion that in our MOU with the city of Cincinnati, the school district has ceded unilateral power over school policing to the city. That's just flatly incorrect. A copy of our MOU with the city on SROs is widely available. We've made it available to you and to committees as well as the media. We've reviewed it carefully and determined whether or not it's aligned with best practices, recommendations from the U.S. Department of Justice Office for Community-Oriented Policing, and we have found that we are following nearly all the recommendations. And very frankly, I would put this MOU and stack it up against any other MOU that a school district has in the country. And I say that admitting that it's the city's law department that drafted this, not our department. It's a well-drafted MOU. It clearly defines the purpose of the program, the goals, the roles, and the responsibilities of the parties. And the most important thing, the most important factor or element of an MOU between a city and a school district relating to school resource officers is to put distinct limitations on the role of SROs and the police in managing school-related discipline. To quote from our MOU with the city, quote, "Non-criminal violations of student conduct are the responsibility of school administrators. The district or school administrator shall have final authority regarding all matters of student discipline. The services performed by CPD, on the other hand, under this MOU are to respond to matters pertaining to student safety, not to enforce school discipline with respect to students." Goes on, and it even gets to incidents that could be considered crossover between criminal actions and school discipline. So it says incidents involving public order offenses committed by students, including but not limited to disorderly conduct, disturbance or disruption of schools or public assembly, loitering, trespass, profanity, dress code violations, and even fighting that do not involve physical injury or a weapon shall be considered school discipline issues to be handled by school officials. CPD police officers shall only become involved in the above listed situations when necessary to protect the physical safety of students and school personnel. Again, this is the hallmark of what a well-drafted MOU between the city and school district is. There are things we can improve. We intend to meet with the city. There are conversations that we should have about the confidentiality of student data. We should also have conversations about how we're collecting data, because as you can see, just saying that there were a number of arrests or a number of encounters doesn't tell the whole story when those arrests or encounters may take place inside or outside of school, on or off school time, and be related to school in any way, really. So we look forward to further conversations with the police, but that summarizes our review of the ACLU statistics as well as our MOU. Our safety director, Mr. Bell, is next.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is William Bell, and thanks for allowing me to be part of your evening.
Mr. Bell, if you could speak up a little bit.
Okay, how's that?
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. I've been told I have a calming voice. So I've joined the board. I joined the board of education in August, and we had a meeting with between SROs and the principals to come up with a plan to monitor or record our interaction. You can go to the next slide. So CPD has agreed that they will submit monthly arrest information involving students arrested on school property. And that information will include the age, race, sex, and location, and criminal charges. It's something that's already in place, and it seems to be going well. Going forward, we hope to continue meetings with the school resource officers and to try to come up with ways to reduce situations where they may need to come in and try to I guess, relax or to stabilize an incident. So oftentimes the police are called to give assistance to the principals. Typically can be a variety of things from something like a lost child, something we had yesterday, to something like just trying to help someone get to school. I think that's it. Next slide.
Just before we wrap up, as you know, you have approved counselors being in all of our high schools, an increase in school social workers, and on the next, thank you. I also want to share with you the work of our positive behavior intervention support team and Susan Bunty's work around restorative practices. And this is something that we talked about not only within our schoolhouses, but also with our partners, the Cincinnati Police Department. And so there you see the definition of what we decided about restorative practices, and 80% of the work is in this proactive space. Next slide, please. Susan wanted me to share with you a couple of myths and a couple of facts about restorative practices. One, that these practices are soft. They don't allow for consequences. We say that's not accurate. If it's done properly, the restorative practices are about repairing harm that had previously been done. A second myth, we no longer have exclusionary consequences when using restorative practices. Fact of the matter, restorative practices are used with students in mind, getting them back into the school, back into the classroom, missing as little instruction as possible. Next slide, please. So what we've done in year one of our rollout plan, the entire Promise Center staff has been trained in restorative practices. All of our ALC facilitators have been trained as well. And then in each of the schools, the principal, assistant principals, and up to 2 teachers at this time have been trained. During our second year, the plan is to bring in building professional development or circles. All of our ESPs will be trained in year 2. And then by the conclusion of year 3, all of Cincinnati Public Schools were trained in restorative practices. So our next step, next slide, please. Completing our conversation with CPD and about our MOU, completing our restorative practices professional development, not only again with Cincinnati Public Schools, but also the Cincinnati Police Department, specifically our school resource officers. And we do have Speak Up, Speak Out happening in all of our high schools. If there are any questions we could answer for the board, we're happy to do that.
Do board members have questions or comments? Mr. Lindy.
I first of all wanted to thank every part of this presentation for how detailed and thoughtful it was. I found every piece of it really helpful. I think Mr. Hoying from kind of how to make sense of the data that we were seeing, and not just that it was not quite right, but why it wasn't right was really very helpful. I think I love the reporting by month on statistics for SROs and just monitoring what we're seeing and how we're doing. And I love the myth versus facts on the restorative practices. Is all just for me personally very, very helpful. I think you see how active and organized some of the students have been over the last year and a half on this. And I think I was always having a hard time kind of reconciling that with it really is that bad. Why aren't we hearing more of an outcry from more schools? This is just very helpful. I also think the Cohere report was very well done and very helpful. Is there a plan to put in place some of the recommendations that came out of that report?
Absolutely. And that's ongoing. It's happening right now.
I think my only request would be, can we continue to get updates on how the implementations of those are going? And, I couldn't tell if this is a part of the plan or not, but I think it's one thing to monitor what the numbers are saying. And then it's another thing to say, we have a goal for where we want to get those numbers, and let's check to see if that's happening or not. That may also be happening. If so, could we continue to get updates? If it's not happening, could we start? But I think this is all just very, very helpful, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Yes, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Murphy. Can you clarify if restorative practices is used as a preventive to exclusionary as well as as an intervention during the exclusionary period?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Ms. Bolton?
Yes, thank you for all the work that everybody's done. And thank to members of the community that have brought this to our attention. And I appreciate the board taking the time and the administration taking the time, because it's a very hot issue and well worth much discussion and work. I too am very impressed with the Cohere summary, particularly obviously the conclusion and the next steps. And I won't lie, I'm happy to see what these results were from Cohere, because there was a degree certainly of independence. It isn't just an internal school district summary. And I also was pleased with the principal's feedback, which is for me, the people on the ground. And indeed, if there's one thing we can do is maybe continue to improve the relationship and the use of the SROs and our chief executive officers or principals in each of the buildings. I am more partial to making the SROs there because as old as I am, 70, when I was in high school, was the first year in the late 60s that they introduced the SRO system. We're the second district, I believe, in the United States of America to do this. But I really am committed to the continuous improvement. And I really like the idea of the consistent assignment. When I was doing a little bit of research, I was stunned to think that that our children in certain schools don't always have the same SRO. I mean, they are rotating that's an assignment issue. And I think that's something that I would hope that the city and the district could improve. The other thing that I would really like to see is more diversionary efforts. I think there's only 2 or 3 programs in the district. 2. I am a huge believer in that, and so I'd like to see more expansion of the diversionary programs and see the positive results that I at least hear about, but I haven't necessarily seen the data. And thank the Health and Safety Committee for shepherding this, and the president for helping shepherd this in a reasonable way through these many, many months.
Okay, Ms. Bates.
Yes,
Thank
but
you.
when I visited the SROs, one of their issues was communication with the district, and they didn't have a way to connect. And I was assured with Mr. Bell's appointment that he would be the point person. So can you describe to me, Mr. Bell, the kinds of communication you're having with your counterpart with the police department?
So we talk on a sometimes daily basis. Information is shared with me and vice versa about some of the challenges that we have. It's always been sort of an informal thing. Big thing that we're going to do going forward is to have a commitment to have principals and SROs meet on a regular basis to determine the best course of action for situations that we face.
I think I'm in agreement with what I've heard, and I too appreciate the comprehensive report and the studies. I haven't really thoroughly reviewed the Cohere report, but I intend to. I do think, in line with what Mr. Lindy was saying, some way of reporting so that board members have information on a regular basis that lets us know where things are. Similarly to the way that the disciplinary reports are distributed, we get that. I believe we get it quarterly, but the committee can figure that out. But I think that I also want to add that the basic question, the reason why this came to us, is because there was a group of students who wanted us to nullify the contract and get rid of SROs. So that question is still looming, and I think we have to review the data, we have to review the information, and we have to maybe formalize some sort of response about how we're going to approach this. We're either going to accept that and work with our SROs, or we're not, so that the message is very clear where we stand. So we need to really take a position. That's how I feel about it. So I'm asking if maybe and I hear this, I hear all the recommendations that you are making, plus additional recommendations. I'm asking if we could possibly formalize that a little more in the Health and Safety Committee and perhaps come with some action items or recommendations from the committee on whether or not we maintain the SRO, the MOU or not. So, and again, it's about messaging. It's about letting folks know that this is what our position is. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay. Yes.
It does, Madam President. But just a segue to next year.
I can't hear
The three leading members was the Health Committee, Health and Safety Committee. So
I know.
that'll be an assignment for the next.
That'll be an assignment for the, it is, it's an assignment. I know, Ms. Bates, you're not coming back just to make that decision. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other questions or comments on the presentation? Yes.
Again, good, wonderful presentation. On the proceeding to January and taking a stand on this or making decisions.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm not sure that it would have to go back to a committee as much as presentation by, to the whole board.
Well, that's what I'm finding. It can be, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it needs to come to the whole board and
It
indeed.
can come to the whole board. We have, it'll be a new committee anyway. But
Yes.
we have like 4 meetings. It doesn't matter which meeting or whatever, but something that's a little more formal and so that we can make a decision and communicate that in our meeting.
Yeah, I think that'd be great to do that in January for the
Yeah.
whole board, and probably this presentation and others would like it or whatever would have to almost be repeated, and with a suggestion by the administration of accepting or rejecting. But it'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. All right, our final presentation for the night.
Yes, we have a transportation update from Ms. Connie Solano, our interim chief operations officer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to present this information to you. This is an update on transportation item. And if we can. Okay. So the vision of our transportation department, we thought this was important to share. And basically, we want a transportation department that is seamless. You know, it's part of the enrollment process where parents can enroll, get transportation in a timely fashion and end up in the classroom. We don't want transportation to be the bad talk. We want it to be just the natural, organic part of the process. We want our eligible students to get timely transportation services. We want to be known as best in class to our CPS families, our communities, our non-public and charter schools, because by law, we have to provide them with transportation as well. So just to give you an overview of our transportation services, for this year, we are providing yellow bus services for our pre-K to 6. And the reason why I say pre-K is because preschool students who have disabilities or they're in the JFS system or KISSER program will get transportation. Also, our 7th to 12th graders are currently using the Metro system. Our current offering is that we provide transportation to our elementary students who live within with 1 mile or more from school, and for high schools is at 1.25. And just wanted you to see the comparison to what the state requires. State requires that by law we provide it to kindergarten through 8th grade, and you have to live more than 2 miles. So as you can tell, you know, that does bear a nice size difference in the number of kids that we are providing transportation who, by law, we wouldn't have to. For fiscal year 2023 and beyond, as you know, we are currently knee-deep in the RFP process. We do have vendors who have applied. We're going to be looking at those applications very soon, and we'll be bringing a request to the board for approval of contracts in January. And of course, we're still researching the possibility of having a small fleet. We're looking at costs, logistics, and things of that nature. So our current yellow bus service. We have a QI project of our on-time performance for our yellow bus routes. And you look at earlier in the beginning days, those are before school starts. We do service runs. It's kind of like a dry run. Make sure that they know the routes, the bus drivers know the routes. And as you can see, we've progressively gotten better. Our target is that 90% of our buses arrive on time to their destination. And over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data points, we've been able to be at least at the 85% mark, and we've actually hit 90% a couple of times so far this year. So we've made some great improvement. We've got our router, Mr. Robert Hughes, who works really closely with the vendors, addressing problems with on-time performance, and the solutions that they've put in place is definitely working. That 1 point below, that was our first snow day. And so that's why you see a low on-time performance, but that's definitely an outlier. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to highlight, like, for fiscal year 21, it wasn't until like April where we saw their highest rate of 85%, and we've already surpassed that, and we're just in December. So I believe the processes that transportation has put in place with their QI project is working. We know we get the kids to school on time, that's more instructional time that they are receiving. So we had talked about doing a pilot for 7th and 8th grade for Clark and Schroeder. And to be honest with you, we have very low survey completion results. First, we tried an online survey, got very low results. And then we tried a paper survey. We actually took papers to the school, letters to the school, had the kids take them home. Very low turnout. So at this point, we've determined not to move forward with the pilot for second semester. However, we are going to be looking at how we can improve transportation services for those targeted customers in the fall. So, Sorta Metro, as you all know, our attorney, Dan Hoyt, did do a public records request, and we received 15 files from Sorta. Those files included their on-time performance, which I'm going to share with you in a minute, their student Metro taps, and their daily ridership. So the Metro card taps is literally every time a card was tapped every single day. And then their daily ridership is how many times a card was tapped. The daily ridership is how many of our kids are actually riding their buses each day. So currently, I'm disaggregating that data, and they did give us data from fiscal year 2018 to fiscal year 21. And I'm also in communication with Sorta because some of the data that we received I have some questions about. So this is Sorta's on-time performance. As you can see, it's down to 73.5%. I think the highest they've had was 75.8, and that was during the time of Thanksgiving. And so we definitely see that there's some work to be done there. 19% of our buses are getting to the school stop late. And that data came straight from Sorta. So we also have some options that we wanted to share with the board. and what the costs are, what it would be now if we were doing it. And what you'll notice is we've got if the Metro dedicated routes were here, they return for next year, what it cost us. So this is based on costs from the last time we had dedicated routes. And after all was said and done, all the true ups were done, we spent about $5.6 million with that. The current agreement we have with Metro is costing us $315 per year per student that lives that lives at 1.25 miles or greater. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, the 1.25 miles applies to 7 through 12. So the cost, based on the initial number of cards that were generated, is about 1.2 million for our 7th and 8th graders and about 3 million for our 9 to 12. And so that's where we ended up at 4.1 million. Now this number does not take into consideration the cards, the deactivation of cards that had not been used. This is just based on, the initial cards that we requested at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. So we don't really know how many cards will be deactivated next year, so that's why we did not include that. So for a total cost of 4.1. If next year, if we no longer have this $315 per year agreement and we go to what they offer their general public, which is the local route pass, which is $80 a month per pass, and if you figure that times 10 months, you're looking at $3 million for your 7th and 8th graders and about $7.5 million for your 9 through 12. Total of over $10 million. And of course, this would be with no coordination of services with SORTA. So the kids would just ride the bus like, the general public. SORTA would not really know like when the high volume times are going to be, when our new start times or end times would be, unless they look it up on our website. And if the board decided to go with what the minimum state requirements are, it's not a huge change in cost because of the fact that we do have, it's not that much difference between kids who live 1.25 miles and the kids who live more than 2 miles. But basically that would be at about 2.8 million for our 7th and 8th graders. And with the state minimum, as I mentioned before, it would be just 7th and 8th grade because we wouldn't have to provide transportation for 9 to 12. And it's kids who live more than 2 miles away from their school. So that estimated cost would be 2.8 million. So basically, what we're humbly requesting of the board is that they can let us know which option they would like us to pursue so that we can plan and communicate to the families and staff and have something ready for them by March 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Do board members have questions or comments? Mr. Messer.
Yeah, talk about having the right person on hand when there was a huge need. And I just want to say thank you for jumping in when you did to probably what felt like a thankless job. The fact that you've gotten to this point where you're through the problems and now thinking forward and challenging the board, and probably won't have a whole lot of feedback because it really with the new board that'll start to make some of these decisions. But I just want to say thank you because I have watched you. You're just steadfast, quiet leader, get her done, fix things. And we're just really lucky to have you. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Bowers.
Yes, I guess I just need clarity on where we are with the last communication from SORTA regarding relationship or agreement with the board. I guess I need to know that before is this an option? The second one an option for us?
Can you pull up the slide with the chart? So maybe this will help. That first column that says Metro dedicated, that's what we have done in the past, right? Where it says the $315 a year, that's what we're doing now. Metro's last communication with us is the third column.
So, for clarity, so if that's where they are now, you're asking
For
us
next, for
for
next.
next school year, 22, 23.
That was the last communication Metro had with Cincinnati Public, that the $80 a month, no coordination between SORTA or CPS, and that will go up to about $10 million.
So when I hear you ask, and thank you, Deputy, Assistant Superintendent, Interim Superintendent, I gotta get together. But Ms. Connie, so when you say you want to know what the board is recommending, or you want a recommendation, do we have any other options here? I mean, we can give you what we want, but if this is what last communication, where are we at with that dialogue? I guess I need to know that.
So for Metro, these were the options we thought, but if you want us to consider others, that's fine. I mean, we have our RFP for Yellow Bus service, and we've asked them to give us any and all grades. So we might find some really competitive pricing. I don't know, so I can come back with, once we know what we have with the RFP, and then see if you want to look at that in addition to this, to see, if you even want to, how you want to pursue Metro, if you just want 7-8, if you want 7 through 12, if you want a combination with Yellow Bus. We just would like to know if, where do you want us to go with the Metro version?
And if I can make a correction, the updated number is what's on the screen for that last column. So it's not 4 million, it's 2 million. So that is an error in your paper copy. The accurate number is.
So this is right.
Yes. And I apologize.
No, the
for that.
accurate number is on the screen. So you can change the number from there. And the number, that last column is compliance from the state of what we have to do. So the state is saying we have to have service for 7th and 8th, but not 9 through 12.
And you will receive an updated version with the corrected number. I apologize for that.
Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Bolton?
Yes. Thank you for this, and the timing is quite good. I know we're continuing to talk about it through in finance with greater specificity. I don't think, and I'm sure the superintendent probably knows this, I don't think the board tonight can say, yes, we want you to do this particular column, but I like having the options out there for the Metro piece. I think it still is an issue with Mr. Messer raised regarding the 7th and 8th graders. It also is part of that RFP hubbub that, Metro took advantage of regarding the 7th and 8th grade and being in competition with the Yellow Bus people. There are also other big questions, are we going to continue to provide free transportation? I hate to say that, but are we in a position to do that? I think I hope we do, as the person that helped introduce that. Are we going to reduce the mileage? Are we going to go to state because we can't afford it? We have a levy in 22, November of 22, and if we have bad bus operations, or we're under the same situation we are this year, I don't know anybody who would vote for a levy, unless the people who just really love us and know that we need their help. So I think we have to keep that in mind. The thing that is interesting to me is that I'm really glad the survey showed that we really didn't need to proceed, because that was going to be like $400,000 or something with, what was it, UTS? My point is there's a bunch of puzzle pieces. It's not just and you have kind of presented that it's not just Yellow and it's not just Metro. I will say it is inconceivable to me that 9 through 12 could be transported anywhere by anyone else than Metro. And Metro, in whatever name they have been transporting our students since before World War II. Since World War II, we've depended upon the regional transit company. So them ditching us as they did is even more egregious. But we're going to need them for 9 through 12. I think my issue is, again, as Mr. Messer raised, the 7th and 8th graders. We know that OSBA specialist came in and did some numbers at how much more that would cost getting the 7th and 8th graders there on Yellow Bus. I also have some concern too about whether or not we could tell our families as early as March 15th, because that's the social studies teacher, and that's the Ides of March. I try not to do anything on March 15th. But the April piece, I like the idea that you guys are talking about, I won't say merging, but making a team that is the enrollment team, the transportation team, the customer service team, and the public information team, all as one. That's really where the transportation team has to be. So I'm excited about the work that's been done. I feel that we need to say, too, that we should separate the transportation services to a certain extent. As you said, like the small fleet, that might be vans, or how much do we spend on our actual dedicated buses? And we can't even get them all to do the field trip for the Holocaust Center. So, I mean, there's qualitative and quantitative, as well as I recall, years after years, transporting our special needs kids is almost as expensive, at least in previous years, as all of the other students on Yellow Bus. So I'd like us to see it as a puzzle. Here's this piece of transportation, here's this, and I appreciate this, and I appreciate continued discussion. But I think that March date is kind of tough for communication. And the RFP coming in, I don't know, as you just said, the Yellow Bus RFP might be very doable, depending upon who we're transporting. So I look forward to continued discussion with with the new board, and appreciate everybody's work on this current board and what we've gone through.
Mr. Lindy.
Thanks, President Jones. I wanted to again thank Connie for all of her hard work, and because I had to step out for a second, I wanted to just make sure I was following some key pieces to this. The way I read the table, just to make sure I'm following it, is that if we, to make sure that every 7th through 12th grader gets to school within our standard radius, we can pay $5 million more than we used to. It's like column 3 versus column 1.
It's actually column 2 and column 3. So our current transportation is column 2.
So we can pay $6 million more.
Correct.
So we can pay $6 million more than we used to for a situation where 20% of buses are. That's the current reality. So we're being asked to pay almost more than double what we used to pay for something that 1 in 5 times doesn't work. I think that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Like I maybe that's apologize, the wrong word to use. I think that's unacceptable. Like I just don't understand how that can. I feel like I'm missing something. I think people are just hoping we don't notice how bad that is. And I think I think that we should acknowledge that. And I had brought this up earlier. I fully believe that we need the contingency plan, and we need to have something we can tell parents. And I love the March 5th, or we can do March 16th or 14th and avoid the Ides of March. But I think that the idea of being proactive with parent communication is outstanding. And so I don't want that to get lost in this. I just think we parallel path it. And I continue to think that, I don't understand how we can pass a giant tax levy and then pay more than twice as much for something that is significantly less good, and people think that's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, what are we going to do about that? I think question.
I guess, I don't know if people have additional comments, but I guess what I'm hearing, just kind of summing things up, is that we can't, the last question was, we need to know how to move forward. Sounds like we have lots of thoughts and ideas and recommendations, but we're not ready to move forward with any definitive decision because of everything that people are saying. And I heard Ms. Bolton say, let's do some more thinking about this in the committee. And I think that that's appropriate to do that. I don't think we're going to get there tonight, is what I'm saying. Ms. Bolton, do you have
And I
another
won't
short comment?
I won't belabor it, but I do think I think that seventh and eighth grades are interesting, and the puzzle pieces I think are interesting. But also, even within Metro, to Mr. Lindsay's point, they are asking us to pay double for less service than we've had over 3 or 4 decades, which is ridiculous. And I think there is a sort of board that we contacted. I think there's a new city council and a new mayor that might have a different view. But one of the things that I think the parents that I hear were most concerned is when the kids have multiple transfers on Metro. I think it would be really interesting to know the percentage of kids, and I think that's in one of the requests, the percentage of kids they get on the bus and they get to school with no transfer. Now and they may have to walk 200 yards or something. But also, I've had people tell me that nearly every high school that we have has very close proximity for almost every bus route in view of a high school. So just if we can just think about that transfer, no transfer, because it'd be great if we get a special route for families that would have more than one transfer.
Okay.
Or any transfer.
Okay. Superintendent Lamont?
Yes, I would like to propose, again, I know Ms. Solano is going to attend the Finance Committee and give a thorough update, and there were some questions asked. So we will have all those questions asked in January. We will like to come back in January with the puzzle pieces, complete presentation, and we will get that to you, the PowerPoint ahead of time so you can review. But it's very important because the logistics behind getting transportation together, administration really would need a decision, and I know you would need the RFP, you would need the plan, and you will need to have those questions answered. And we will commit to having everything to you by January so we can move forward of implementing a plan, whatever the will of the board is, so our students, staff, and families are completely aware of what service will be available in the fall.
Yes. And I'm just want to close it out by saying, I think the assignment the last time, we've received a big portion of those assignments and things. And I think what we said was we needed data information. We had some questions that we put out there. We wanted to bring it all back. And then the board needed to decide what strategy, what was our position and what strategy were we going to use. So I don't necessarily think, people express concerns one way or the other about, their thoughts about where we are now and what that, I don't think we're ready. Even doing that here, to me, serves no purpose. I think we have to tighten it up, get the recommendations out you want to look at and make it a little more concise so we know what we're trying to address. And then we come up with recommendations via the committee or whatever to move forward. So I appreciate the information. I think it's helpful, but I also look forward to the January presentation, maybe where we can answer the question at that time. So I think are we done then? Is there anything else regarding this matter that we need to discuss tonight? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Solano. All right. So we are now at the item on our agenda for hearing the public. Consistent with the state's direction to minimize public gatherings, we're convening this video conference to include opportunity for public comment. Each speaker shall have 2 minutes and will direct all comments to the presiding officer. Once a request to speak has been granted, you will be invited to enter. Please click on the camera icon, state your name, your affiliation to the district, your school, community, your topic, and your contact information if you want a direct response to any questions you might have. We reserve the right to not permit you to speak if you do not comply. Each speaker, again, will have 2 minutes to speak and may only speak once. When the timer goes off, your time is up. Please refrain from discussing personnel items. After speaking, you will briefly see the welcome carried. Be respectful of all those listening in. Speakers. 0? Oh my goodness. I went through all that. Okay. Not even 1. Come on, I'm going to beg for 1, right? Okay. They took pity on us. All right. Okay. Anyone have any kudos? No kudos? Okay. All right. Ms. Bates.
And I have 1 retirement. And could be. No, the retirement I'm honored to announce is Lolita Neal, who is part of our civil service personnel. She was a lunchroom manager, and she is retiring next month. So we thank Ms. Neal for her service to our students and wish her well.
Thank you. So we'll have to figure out who's going to do that next time. We'll work that out.
You'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Morosky had to leave early, so I'm asking someone from the policy committee to present the first resolution. It's the resolution amending board policy regarding contracting with consultants.
Yes, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution amending board policy 3120.07, which is contracting with consultants. I submit for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Ms. Bolton? The next resolution.
I submit for passage a resolution amending board policy 3121, criminal history record check.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Mr. Lindy, the next resolution, please.
I submit a resolution amending board policy 3122, non-discrimination employment opportunity, and I submit the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers?
Aye.
Mr. Lindy?
Aye.
President Jones?
Yes. Mr. Lindy, could you please present in Mr. Borowski's absence, the next one?
Sure. I present a resolution amending board policy 3122.01, alcohol drug-free work environment, and I present the resolution as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
I just feel like if Mr. Morosky were here, what he would want to say is that all of these policies that we're submitting are basically cleanup work, where we're updating policies so that it's in line with current law and removing some duplicative things to have fewer policies in general. Unless I missed something in this one.
No, that's it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Okay, Ms. Bolton, the next resolution.
Yes, thank you. I submit for approval a resolution rescinding board policy 4121, criminal history record check. This is for rescission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Mr. Lindy?
I present resolution rescinding board policy 4122, non-discrimination and equal employment opportunity. I submit the policy as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Mr. Lindy? Keep going.
I submit a resolution rescinding board policy 4122.01, the alcohol drug-free work environment. I submit this resolution as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Ms. Bolton?
I submit a resolution to amend the transfer of funds to the school-wide pooling fund approved August 23rd, 2021 from the general fund and Title I for fiscal year 21-22.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Ms. Bates?
Yes, I present a resolution approving students eligible for subsidy reimbursement in lieu of transportation for the 2021-22 school year. I present this resolution for adoption as printed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Ms. Bolton, the final one?
I submit for approval a resolution requesting authority from the Hamilton County Budget Commission to file a modified tax budget for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Ms. Ahmad, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. I would like to first submit the written report for approval. And just in our last board meeting for the year with a huge thank you and a wonderful holiday break for our staff, families, and our board members. In front of you, I just want to clarify, there is a gift and it is sparkling apple cider. Just want to be clear with a little note in there for you. And then we will end with our video.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Cincinnati.
What a year, what a year. We came together as a community, and I'm so proud of us. Teachers, students, and families, we reconnected with one another, and it has been an awesome start of the school year.
I thought back to school felt particularly special this year.
It's so great to have our kids back in class, and it really takes the whole CPS community.
I mean, I would want to say thank you to everybody. I mean, our frontline, our students, our staff, our principals, everybody at the school.
Teachers, paras,
our senior support specialists, the members of our security team,
secretaries, social workers, counselors as well.
I'm very thankful for the HR and talent team and their partnership.
I really want to send a thank you out to the transportation department. Their work never ends.
Dining services, custodial, transportation, communications.
Our IT people who keep us running.
I am so thankful for our school and community partnerships.
It's the entire CPS family, and I would just want to say thank you to all of them.
I'm thankful for my teacher, my classmates, my friends and family.
I just want to take an opportunity on behalf of the board to thank everyone for giving 100% at least to the success of Cincinnati Public Schools.
Thank you for what you add and what you bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We could not have done this without you.
Enjoy your winter break!
Enjoy your winter break.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the revised superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the revised treasurer's report?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowers? Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Okay, inquiries and updates. I have just two very brief ones. One is the very next meeting, the beginning of the school year, is the year we do our organizational meeting. So this is a reminder to submit your information on the organizational structure chart. And also, it is the day that we have the tax budget hearing. In other words, it's a long meeting. So we also do the oath of office. I will make sure that all our newly elected members have the information that they need to have to prepare for that. And we're good to go. We do not, this is not, we will not have a business agenda unless board members, if you think of something that needs urgent attention, we can always add. We prefer not to because the meeting is long enough. Okay. Second update or announcement is we have our next board meeting January 3rd, and then a week after that, we have our first work session. That doesn't give us a lot of time to plan. So I'm going to ask board members to give thought to whoever is in leadership roles or whatever so that they will have a running start in organizing some sort of agenda. So if you have ideas or thoughts about the work session, just put them in paper. Don't try to organize it. We just throw something on paper so that we at least have some idea of what people want to have happen in that meeting. Okay. Any other inquiries or updates? Any assignments? Mr. Lindy?
Thank you, President Jones. This is very quick. I think two things. One was I had a nice chance to talk to a group of parents last week, and out of that conversation came a number of small follow-up questions. What I would probably love to do is just email them to the interim superintendent and then ask Phyllis to share it with the board. They're on topics like questions about healthy start times, some questions about kids having access to therapy. I want to make sure I get back to those folks, but I don't know that we need to do it as a whole group, but I want everybody to know what I'm asking about. And then second, I had a nice conversation with Jen about this earlier this week, but as we get about halfway through our first year with the big federal money on COVID, one of the things I'd love for the board to get a chance to look at, and I don't know whether it could be in a finance committee and then we get a report on it, or it could be a broader board discussion, is to look at, for our COVID plan, for the CARES dollars, or for the rescue plan dollars, to look at the investments we made on a cost per impacted pupil basis, and to check specifically where we've made the biggest investments. How's it going? And are we seeing the kinds of things we want to see with those investments, or do we need to make them together? I think I leave it to you all to figure out I think there are a million ways we could do this. And my expectation is not that we look at every single cent, but the biggest investments we've made, what are they? What is that in dollars per impacted kids terms? And how do we feel about the impact of that investment halfway through our first? Did I miss anything there, Jen? Would you say that differently at all?
Yeah, I think I understand completely what you're asking for, and we'll draft something up and have you take a look at it, make sure it's heading in the right direction, and then we can share it with the whole board.
Yeah, and just I want to say from a process perspective, I'm agnostic as to whether that should be a finance committee thing first or a full board, but just that we're doing some looking together. And then I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bolton?
Yes, just two assignments. One, like a report to the board as to the results of the testing regarding Walnut admittance and whatever we did last year when we kind of looked into that. I don't know that I've seen the results from those tests. And the other one is I've had a number of inquiries about summer scholars, because I know the recreation folks as well as us and other people are trying to make those plans for the summer. And just as a caveat, as successful as that was, I do want us to remember some of the criticism that was there as well. Like, was it really reaching all of the kids, or the kids that needed it the most, or what have you? So, and then that's also, I guess, a transportation issue too. But those would be the two: the results of the test and the and finding out where we are on summer scholars.
Thank you. Any other assignments? Okay. I need a motion to recess into executive session to consider pending litigation, preparations for conducting, reviewing negotiations, security, and employment of a public employee.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. Ms. Wagner?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton? Bowers? Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
President Jones?
Yes. Thank you. We could probably, so We could stay here. So people are free to go, except for the people who